This is the OMG Book Show with William O'Day, episode number 16. Give me the keys, I can drive.
Welcome to the OMG Book Show, where it's all about taking you into the brains of fantastic authors. No scalpels required. It's more than an interview, it's an experience. And now, your host, William O'Day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I hope you don't tire of me being ridiculous, because I know I never will. And what I was referring to at the top of the show there was, in the United States anyway, you can drive legally as a 16-year-old. I don't know what it's like in the UK or other places. And as when I was 16, or even as 15 and a half, I think at least where I grew up in Oklahoma, you could drive with an adult in the seat next to you at 15 and a half. Can you believe that, ladies and gentlemen? 15.5. In right now, in my older age, and I'm sure this is inescapable and happens to everybody, it seems ludicrous. Even 16, I mean, half year later, 16. That's crazy land. You're giving a 16-year-old, it's essentially an armored vehicle. I mean, not exactly, but it's compared to a bike, it is. And it goes about, what? I don't know, 20 times faster, 30 times faster, potentially, and weighs 4,000 pounds. It's insane. 16-year-olds have like the attention span of a gnat. And that is a generalization, of course. Not all of them do. I'm just kind of referring to my own youth and, every single friend I ever had at that age. For the most part. Anyway, all I'm saying, going back to the point, is 16 is crazy to let a kid drive a car by themselves at that age. But moving on, back to things, I don't know if it's back to, because I'm not sure we ever got there in the first place, but to things that are actually relevant to this show, OMG Books, where we speak with amazing authors. Today, we're going to be speaking with Jeff Olah, the bestselling author of the Dead Years series and also the Last Outbreak series. And here is something very special. This is Jeff's first podcast interview. In other words, I'm Jeff's first. Okay. You could say that, but you probably shouldn't. And so I'm not going to. Just erase that from your minds. Boop. It's like the little memory eraser thing from Men in Black that Will Smith wielded on those unlucky people or aliens or whatever. Anyway, let's just do that to ourselves. And now we're back. So anyway, today with Jeff, we get to discuss the perils of the writerly life and, kind of being in your head for extended periods of time every single day. How that, I mean, you need to touch reality now and again for that not to make you go crazy. So we go over things, we go over that with him. He also talks about writing the novella that he did for the Extinction Cycle world, which is Nick Smith or Nicholas Stansbury Smith's Kindle World series. Or it is his series, that he then created with Amazon a Kindle Worlds option for, which, if you're not familiar with that, is where other authors can go in and write books in a particular series that borrow from and exist in the other author's world. So that's pretty cool. We'll hear more about that. And he also is kind enough to share with us his first book cover that he ever did. He did it himself. And while hilariously bad, it's actually not as bad as I would have thought. My first cover, which I should try to dig up at some point, was 10 times worse. Anyway, we will put it in the show notes so that you can have a giggle at that. And let's see what else. He also talks with us, gives us an exclusive look into his new series. So he's got the two, and he's working on starting a new series called The Next World. And he gives us the download on that, which is very cool. And last but not least, Jeff shares with us his top shelf recipe for creating the perfect protein chocolate shake, which I actually really needed because I have done so many protein chocolate shakes, or even vanilla or whatever, over the years. And I will describe to you in this interview the perilous and deleterious effects that it has had on my system. I'm going to leave it there for now. So without further ado, it is a wonderful interview. It's great to talk with Jeff, and you will get to hear it yourself because we're going to start in 3, 2, 1. Wait, everybody, hold your horses. Stop the countdown. I realized the other day while editing this episode that the intro, that super cool professional sounding guy that, he's like a pro DJ style thing he does at the beginning where he says, "No scalpels required." Except he does it like really a lot cooler than I just did. But he does say "no scalpels required." And then later, right before the interview starts, most often I'll say something like "surgical gloves on, scalpel in hand, let's get started." But that doesn't make any sense because earlier I said no scalpels are required. So I am going to fix that this time. So, except I'm doing a countdown. We're going to go, the countdown's off. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, there is no countdown anymore. We're going to go with the new, amended, improved version of that phrasing that I have been using. So here we go. How about we do a countdown to that? That'll work. 3, 2, 1. Surgical gloves on. Metaphorical scalpel in hand. Let's get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Today, I am super excited and thrilled to bring to you a post-apocalyptic extraordinaire author by the name of Jeff Olah. Jeff, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks. Thanks for having me, Will. This is great.
Awesome. And we just heard right before we started recording that Jeff, this is his first, maybe I interpreted this correctly. I think I did. This is Jeff's first time on a podcast. Is that right, Jeff?
Definitely, yes.
Oh, yes. Then yeah. I'm kind of feeling special here. I know it's weird to say, but I am.
I'm a total noob at this.
Okay, good. Well, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert, so we're gonna noob through it together.
All right.
Right on. Well, I wanted to, the way I usually start the show in general terms is kind of going back a little bit and seeing how people got into this whole writing gig, sure, because the roads to get here are so varied, and it's I think it's fun to see where everybody came from. So for you and in your history, what got you into writing way back when?
I don't know if it's a funny story, but back in the early 90s, I had a lot of free time to read. So I was devouring a buddy of mine introduced me to Dean Koontz, and I was devouring all of his books. And reading through them, I thought, I like telling stories, and this doesn't seem like something I couldn't do. So I had a twinge of it back then. And then somewhere around the year 2000, 2001, I bought a book that was titled How to Write and Sell Your First Novel. And going through the beginning chapters of that book, I thought, wow, I'm going to be an author at some point. I can do this. But then I got to I think it was chapter 8. It talked about finding a publisher and an agent, and I did a complete 180. I thought, I don't want any part of this. I don't want to query. I don't want to send out 100 FedEx boxes with my manuscript and wait 6 months, 3 months, whatever it is to hear back. I'm not that patient. Yeah. So I promptly took the book without reading the rest of it to the local library and donated it. And that was it until about 2012. And I had been doing, I worked in real estate at the time and had been doing some internet marketing on the side, just kind of getting my feet wet with learning how to market stuff online. And I came across a story about Hugh Howey, and how he was self-publishing on Amazon. And I thought, okay, this looks interesting. So late 2012, I did a bunch of just digging around to see what this was all about and how to go about doing it. And I thought, you know what, I'll just throw a book out there and see what happens. And I started writing a military thriller, and I don't know, 5-6 chapters in, I figured I don't know how people in the military talk.
Which can be a problem, right?
Yeah, not only to one another, but how they interact with civilians in a military setting. So I shelved that story, and early March of 2013, I was having a conversation with my father-in-law, and he he had told me about a story that he heard, because he knew I was big into The Walking Dead and zombie fiction, and he said he had heard of a story of this billionaire guy that wanted to create human clones, and he mentioned something in the story about there being mention of how it could go wrong and people turning into zombies and this and that. And I thought, that's my story. So that was a Sunday, I believe. Monday I started writing, and 2 weeks later I had a 80 or 90 page book that I just wanted to put on Amazon, and I did the cover myself. I don't know if I've told anybody this, but the cover was actually, I took a selfie of me. I took a selfie and then put it through an app. It's called like Zombify Me or something like that. I just ran it through an app and then put it through a couple filters, and that was my cover photo for The Dead Years Volume 1.
So it sounds like many indie authors right there at the beginning, there were humble beginnings as you kind of poked your way around and figured it all out. Is that right?
Yeah. At the time, I think one thing I didn't do was I didn't go to any forums. I didn't go searching around to see if I didn't go looking for reasons I couldn't do it. I just kind of just wrote the book, and it's funny, just before our call here, I was listening to Mark Tufo's interview.
The one he did on our show?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and he talked about doing his own cover and having his book unedited, at the beginning, and just putting it up, and the bad reviews and, things that
Right.
eventually came. I had the same exact experience, all the way to the point of I posted on Facebook, I'm done, I'm out, I don't want to do this anymore. I started getting some really negative reviews on Amazon, and
Ouch.
I had almost the same experience as him. I had a reader message me and say, "Do not stop. We like your writing. You're a great writer. Just keep writing." And after a couple hours of hovering over the button to kill my author account on Amazon, I decided, all right, I'll keep going and see what happens.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I believe it sound from looking online at the Amazon and the Dead Years cover, I think in the interim you have changed it to be more professional and kind of tie the series together with good branding, right?
Right. Yeah. What I did was I started noticing that indies were upping their game, like big time. They were getting really nice professional covers done, and I know I needed to compete, so I went and found a good designer, and she absolutely, Rebecca Frank, absolutely knocked it out of the park with the covers, and instantly my books started doing better. They were doing well, but they instantly started doing even better, and it was I knew I needed to kind of and then along with that, I was getting, after the really bad reviews for book one, I went and found an editor, and I've worked with him on every single book that I've done.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think our obvious next question then is, after the interview or at some point, would it be possible, could you email me the original cover and then we could put it in the show notes for everyone out there to enjoy?
Yeah, most certainly. It's pretty funny. And I think I did all of the covers through, at the time, what happened was, I originally was writing these like TV episodes. I felt like I was writing them like TV episodes, 80, 90, 100-page books, and just getting them out like once a month. So I was doing my own covers, and I think I went all the way through book 10. All I was doing was going onto a stock photo website, buying stock photos, that I thought matched the theme of that particular book, and just it was very minimal editing to the cover. And then what I did was, when I got to volume 10, and
you're talking about of the Dead Years series?
The Dead Years, yeah.
Okay.
I was getting most of the complaints in reviews were, we want these things to be longer. So what I did is I went back and rebranded the entire series with the new covers, and what I did was I took book 1 and book 2, volume 1 and volume 2. I made that book 1. 3 and 4 was book 2, so on and so on, all the way. So instead of having 10 volumes, I now had 5, like 200-page books.
Right.
And then I wrote 6, 7, and 8 as longer books. So it confused some readers. Like, they were like, wait, I thought I read this one. But eventually that washed out, and they seemed to be okay with it.
Right. And that's one of the things I think is so cool about indie publishing and the opportunities that it has presented is you, obviously people like yourself and people like me who are just 0% interested way back when in pursuing, like you're talking about, like mailing out manuscripts and waiting for 6 months. And then, it just seems so painful. I actually had one book traditionally published and decided way back in the day and decided never going to do it again.
Right.
But now, I mean, you're kind of, which can also be a little embarrassing, but you're kind of learning on the job in the public view,
Sure. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I've done many things in the last, what am I coming up on 5 years now that I'm like, oh man, why did I go down that road? But it was a learning experience, and luckily enough, my readers have been overly generous with my learning as I'm going through this.
That's awesome. And so does it sound like, do you still, or have you ever read your reviews as they come in?
I don't really read. What I used to do was I used to read reviews like I was refreshing the page 10 times a day, and that was because after that first round of bad reviews where I wanted to quit, there's been numerous times since then where I've threatened in my own mind to quit. But I don't know, probably 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I just I go through Author Central now. I don't go through Amazon. I'll go through Author Central maybe once every few weeks and just scroll through, because I do like, if there's something in there that I need to see, I want to see it.
Right.
But I have no, I don't believe that everybody's going to like what I write. And I figured that out at some point when there were some pretty big books out that people were praising that I, for one reason or other, I would start to read them and just couldn't get into them. And
you're talking about books that other people had written.
Yeah. I would be hearing all these great things about them, and I would go through them, and I couldn't get past the first 2 or 3 pages. And I think what I figured out, and maybe it's just me, but I think the way my brain works is the way certain writers write, it just fits better. The words coming in just fit better in my mind. And, I've got a few authors over the last few years, that I can't get enough of their work at all.
Yeah. I think it totally makes sense. No story is going to be able to please every reader,
Right.
I mean, even if you say, within a particular genre, whatever, sci-fi, post-apocalyptic romance or whatever, even within a particular genre, even still, no story is going to be able to please every reader. We're just all so unique with, like you're saying, we bring our own experiences and our own tastes, and just some things are like, I'm out, don't like that.
Right. I completely agree. And knowing that, I'm looking at the reviews. If there's something in there, like I said, if there's something in there I need to see, then I want to see it. But I don't dwell on it. If somebody doesn't like it for one reason or another, and it could be something as simple as they're not having a good day,
right?
And it could taint the way. And I know I've there's been days that I haven't been having a great day, and it kind of paints the rest of my day for me as far as the way I interact with people and even online and things like that. So I don't take it personally anymore. And I just going in knowing not everybody's gonna like what I write.
I think that's the key too, because I've heard from different authors different approaches to this. Like Mark, Dirk Patton, a few other authors have said they don't read reviews anymore, and
right.
They figured out that system works for them.
Yeah.
And then others, it sounds like you and I think I follow this as I don't read like every single review, but
right.
I do like to get a sense of kind of how a reception of a particular story is going. But the trick is,
sure.
like you're mentioning, is don't take, when you get one that says, this is terrible, you're the worst or whatever,
right.
Don't take it personally. It's just like, it didn't fit with that person.
Yeah.
And moving on.
Right. Exactly. I agree with that 100%.
But that is a trick because, and I think maybe it's like the stages of grief, or there's these 5-6 stages you go through. Maybe
right.
also as you become more of a professional as a writer, there
right.
are these stages as well, because I do, and admittedly sometimes still do, but pretty much over it, but where you're just like refresh.
Right.
What's
right.
the next review? And
right.
then, usually they're good and you're happy, but then a terrible one went through and then all of a sudden you just crater out emotionally, and it's so not productive.
Yeah, one of the things, and I had to stop this early on, was I was checking reviews before I went to bed, and
no.
there was a few times when I would see it like a new review came in, and it was terrible, and there were and what's funny is the ones that I think get me thinking the most are the ones that actually they'll say something that's negative and it hits home because it's maybe something I was worried about happening, with my, like, if I'm
right.
going for a certain theme or tempo in a book and I'm thinking, well, this could be taken one of two ways, and it hits that person the wrong way. It's like, God, I knew that was probably going to happen or maybe going to happen, and it did.
Right.
Then those are the ones that would keep me awake.
Yeah, and it's have you gotten to? It sounds like you have, but and I think I'm pretty much to the point where have you gotten to the point where you can read the critical one, but then just you have got the little professional wall between your emotions and it.
Yeah, I can move on, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that, like I said, certain things I do, I'll write something in a way where I'm hoping it hits the reader a certain way, but there's a chance that it's going to do something else, and when it does that, then those are the ones that I can separate myself from it now. It doesn't where it used to bother me for days. It maybe bothers me for a few minutes, and then I move on because I know I'm going to get more of those.
Right. And it's what I've learned about myself, and I'm sure every author that experiences this is probably similar, is when you let those negative comments dig too deep into kind of how you feel about your writing and your process,
right.
Then it's like, okay, now the next week, my productivity just got slashed.
Right.
And then in retrospect, you look back and you're like, that was so pointless. Like, I just needed to keep powering forward.
Right. And now I'm writing to this one complaint versus writing to the hundreds of readers that like the way I already do things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Right on. Well, and maybe this is part of what we're talking about here, but you obviously been at it a while. Was 20? I think you said 2012. Was that when you first got into fiction at all, or did you have any history before that?
I wrote something in. When was that? Sometime in the late 90s, probably. I wrote I wrote a story that I may dig out at some point. It's titled Envy, and I have a private group on Facebook, like beta readers, and it was so cringeworthy that I said, you know what, I'm going to let them just take a look at it. It's only, like maybe 3/4 of a chapter, but it was the opening to this book, and I put it in a PDF and put it in the group like a couple of weeks ago, and they seem to like it. It's not has nothing to do with zombies or anything, but they seem to like it. So at some point, maybe I'll bring it out. But yeah, I think it was late 90s when I started writing it. And I think what happened was when I was writing it is when I bought that book on how to write and sell your first novel. And I think at the time when I took that book back to the library, I think that's probably the same time when I just stopped writing that story as well. But right. I did come across it. I didn't have it on any hard drive. I had a hard copy of it sitting in a file, and I was actually looking for something else a couple weeks ago in my files, and I came across this, and I'm like, what is this? Oh boy. So yeah, and I just felt I needed to share it with them.
Oh, that's super cool. Do you, so that sounds like the seed or start of a story. Do you often find, and you mentioned the military one that got put away. Do you find that you kind of jump into a story and it's not working and you set it aside, or are those more outliers?
Yeah, I think those are outliers. I have, there's probably, what I do is I create a file folder for each new story or each new idea that I have, and I maybe only have 3 of those that I haven't pushed all the way through, because my process kind of goes like, I have an idea, and then I'll push out and see, okay, how much, does this thing have any legs? Do I have a middle? Do I have an ending? Do I have some characters that I like, that I want to hear from? And I kind of run through all of that in my head for a few days before I decide to even create like a file folder for it. But yeah, most of what I come up with, I end up pushing through. It changes a lot, but I'll usually end up pushing it through.
Yeah. And then do you, are you, the way you approach the writing process, where are you on the spectrum of the kind of the architect versus the pantser? People call them different things, but outliner versus seat of the pants, that kind of thing. I'm seat of the pants. I've tried, what I did was, this first book in my second series, which was, The Last Outbreak. The first book I wrote, almost back to front. What I did was I wanted to play with the idea of, and I've seen this in movies before, where they'll do the last scene first, and then they'll run back the rest of the movie as they run it back to that opening scene. Yeah, that's a cool plot device.
Yeah, and I wanted to see about doing that, so I knew that I wanted to. I knew the scene that I wanted to end with, so I thought, okay, I'm going to write 3/4 of that, but I won't give them the final ending till the end of the book. But then I knew basically the rest of the book and where all the characters were going, where they came from. I kind of knew all the scenes of the book, and it took me forever to write that book because I wasn't getting to experience it along the way. What I typically do with most of my books is I know the beginning, I know the end, and then I know some big things that are going to happen throughout. And then and the main thing is I know my characters. I know who they are. I know what their wants are, what their desires are, and a lot of times I'll base them on people I know from television shows, just their personality types. And then I just throw them into crazy situations, and then I think, how's this guy going to react? How is this woman going to react? How is this? And then I just let them do it, and it's fun for me that way. I get to experience it, along with the reader as they're going through.
Right, that's very cool. I've tried it both ways, and at this point, I'm leaning more towards the outliner phase. But there is still that element. Like I do beats through the whole story, but I find, kind of like you're saying, is you start a scene and then the character's like, Nah, the thing you had planned is not really what I'm into,
Right,
and the whole
right.
scene like veers off to the right, and you're like, okay, well, let's see where this goes.
Right. I've run into trouble with that with doing it the way I do it as well. When I have too many characters, just as the books go on, I start picking up new characters, and none of them seem to die, so I gotta keep them around, and I'll never forget. I think it was book 2 or book 3 of the Dead Years. I had them in a sporting goods store, and I think I want to say 10 or 12 characters, and only 3 of them were really doing anything. And I was so in the scene at the moment that I felt like these other 7 or 9 people were looking at me saying, "Hey, what are we supposed to be doing?" and like that stayed with me ever since, to kind of remind me, I need to, watch what I'm, before I get there, kind of see what's happening with getting, too many people. I just almost feel like I'm shooting a movie, and like I just too many people standing around.
Right. And then how did you solve that? Because I imagine like writing a scene with 12 characters actively participating would be incredibly difficult. Like, how did you solve that?
I pushed them all. It was a guy that was, I think the main character had gotten shot, and they were two of the people working on him. So I had the 2 people working on him send everybody else out into the sporting goods store for different things that they would need. And then a few of them just, I had them, clear the room just so, they could work. But in my mind, it was clear the room just so I didn't have these characters standing around, getting upset with me because I wasn't giving them anything to do.
Right. And are we talking about Ethan Runner was the...
This was actually in the Dead Years. So it was Mason Thomas.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you? Are the names? So Mason Thomas is the protagonist. I mean, you have kind of an ensemble cast, but the main protagonist from the Dead Years.
Yeah.
And then Ethan Runner, main protagonist from that Last Outbreak. What are those just names you randomly came up with, or how did you land on those 2? There's
a bunch of different ways I do it. I'll when I'm trying to come up with a new character, when it's the main character, those are more. Those are more, thought of in advance, but like Mason, this is funny. Mason Thomas is the main character for the Dead Years. I don't give you his full name, and until I believe book 5 or book 6. So for the entire series, it's Mason, and then I finally at the end I thought, or that where the one book was going to end, I felt I needed to give his full name, but his name came from the one of the projects that I had started, one of the 3 projects I had kind of started and didn't finish. The character's name was Mason Wrath, and I liked the name Mason, so I used that for the main character in this one, and then Ethan Runner. I think I just started searching through. There's a couple different websites I use for boy names, girl names, male names, female names, last names, things like that. And sometimes I'll just dig through there until something hits me the right way.
Clicks, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have to profess to loving the name Mason also. I've got one of the series I have, Mason West, is, hey,
nice.
Mason is intrinsically heroic, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I don't actually know any Masons, and do I? No, I don't think I know any in real life, but I know a few in fictional land.
Yeah, me. I think I'm the same way. And by the way, I think I mentioned this before, but your covers are awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. Which ones are we talking about? The Last Peak series or the other one?
I'm gonna have to pull it up here. It was the ones that are really
kind of graphic in nature, or these nature scenes.
I love the Darwin Protocol, the Darwin Collapse. Those are I love the simplicity.
Oh, good. Thank you.
They're and the funny thing is I've seen these before. on Amazon, obviously, and they always stood out to me. I think they're great.
Oh, thank you so much. Well,
yeah.
Part of that, or you can, going back to how we get started in this thing, is I understood the limits of my design skills.
Right.
I was like, I just want it simple and punchy.
Right. Did you do these yourself?
I did, yes.
Oh, these are great.
Oh, thank you.
Wow, that's awesome.
I'm not a graphic designer, so the new series I'm working on, I didn't do those because I understood that once you get beyond simple, my skills come up against a hard wall.
Right. Yeah. Oh, are you talking about the Eden series?
Yeah, the Recovering Eden series. Elizabeth Mackey, same cover designer as Nick Smith and a few others did those. She's amazing.
Yeah, these are all these are great, and your website too. Your websites. I used to design websites before WordPress was around and stuff like that, and your website's really nice too.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. And speaking of Nick Smith, I owe a lot of I don't talk to many other authors, but he's one that I do talk to, and he's been instrumental in some of the things that I've done, and I even wrote a book in his Extinction Cycle Kindle Worlds.
Yeah, the Bone Collector. I wanted to ask you about that experience. What kind of lit your fire to jump into that? We had been talking before that. I think I sent him a friend request back in like 2015, and I noticed somewhere that he was also an athlete, and he had overcome some health issues from his younger days, and actually ran an Ironman triathlon, and I was just blown away by that, because I know that's something that not everybody can do. So we got to talking, and I like the way he runs his business, and how professional he does, how professional he is, how he does everything. Absolutely.
So he messaged me and had asked me when they were doing this if I wanted to be one of the initial authors in the Kindle world, and I jumped at it. I said, yeah, for sure. And then I had a few ideas for what I wanted to do, and then we talked on the phone one day, and I found out that there were actually some other authors that were going to do the same thing I was going to do. And he said, I have an idea if you'd like to try it out. He said there was another author that was going to write from the perspective of the Bone Collector, and they're not going to do anymore. Do you want to take that on? And I said, well, let me think about it. And I think I texted him later that day and said, yeah, for sure. I had an idea that I wanted to pursue, and what I wanted to do was I looked through reviews and I looked through comments from his readers, and they hated the Bone Collector because the Bone Collector killed I want to say a fan favorite character. The Bone Collector killed this character, and everybody hated him. And I thought, what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and get people to like the Bone Collector. I'm going to try and get people to love the Bone Collector. I'm going to try and get people to cry over the Bone Collector. So
I love how you approach it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote back from when the Bone Collector was just a human, and I gave him a lot of problems, and I gave him a lot of problems the whole way through, and then I turned him, and then and I knew how it was going to end, so I had to kill him at the end, and I actually had some of Nick's readers message me on Facebook and told me they were crying at the end of the book.
Oh wow.
And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I was going for. And it's one of the books that I'm more proud of writing. I set out to do something, and it hit the readers the way I was hoping.
Right. That's a good feeling as a writer when what you intend to achieve actually ends up happening.
Right. I can't say it's happened with all my books, that's for sure. But this one, it seemed to work out.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love. It's not necessarily just restricted to writing, but fiction in general, TV, writing, books, whatever, is when the writer takes you on such a what's the word I'm looking for? not efficient isn't quite the right word, but just so deft, agile process where someone, you hate at one point, at some point later in the story, you're totally rooting for. And then the crazy thing is if that writer can then bring you back to utterly hating that character.
Yeah. That's a skill. I don't know that I possess it yet, but I completely agree with you.
Well, it sounds like clearly you at least got halfway through that cycle. So, I mean, you're on your way.
Right.
Well, so you've been at it for a while. You've learned some chops. You've strengthened your process.
Sure.
If you could go back and tell your younger writing self anything, a piece of advice, what would it be?
I think initially I would probably do two things. Probably do more research at the beginning, as far as before I put the books out. But to be honest with you, when I wrote the first book, I didn't see anything really happening. I just wanted to see if I could do it.
Right.
And then kind of once I don't know if you noticed, I haven't done any marketing. I've maybe bought 2 or 3 ads. I applied for BookBub, I think 11 times, and I've collected all 11 rejections. But other than that, I really haven't done any marketing. The first Dead Years sold, I think the first day 4 copies, then 4 copies. Then it was, by the time book 2 came out, I was selling about 10 to 20 copies a day. And then by the time book 3 or volume 3 came out, I was selling like 100 copies a day. And I didn't know that was unusual.
Right. Just being new to do the whole thing.
I just thought, and I hadn't been on any of the forums, what was it, Kindle boards or whatever it is. I hadn't been on there. So I didn't know any of this, was different. But I think what I would have done was I would have researched, what I was writing a little bit better. I would have researched the industry a little bit better. But also I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I think I would have seen that, how few authors actually make it, and I might have been discouraged and not ever tried it.
Right. And it seems like one of the biggest parts, and it's not the only part, but one of the biggest parts is of a successful career is the regular production of stories. And you seem to have that down pretty well. What's your pipeline these days? Last year wasn't good. I let a lot of stuff get into my head, and I didn't write as much as I should have. 2018 is going to be different. I've got, my goal is 6 books this year. I have a new series I just started, and then I have another series that's gonna come right on the tail of that one. They're both 3 books. The first 3 are built in the same world as the Dead Years, and the next 3, the next series that I'm doing after that is another zombie series, but it's not set in the Dead Years. I'm going to go as realistic as I possibly can with it being a zombie story. You're talking about this next series.
Yeah, the one I'm hopefully going to start it around July.
Cool. And then this first new series you're talking about, I was looking on your website. Uh-huh. Is this the New World?
The Next World, yeah.
Next World, right. And that is, from what I could gather about it, it is a kind of a continuation of both of your existing series. Is that right?
That, you're going to get an exclusive. I haven't told anybody.
Here we go.
Except for maybe my wife. What I started doing was I started writing that. I started writing a continuation, but there was these other characters in my head that kept begging me to write about them. And it's a family of 4 that I'm going back to the beginning again. I've got a family of 4 that wants me to tell their story of traversing this man-made virus. And what's going to happen is it's going to be 3 books. It's going to kind of mirror the timeline of probably both books, probably the Last Outbreak and the Dead Years. And then all 3 series will continue from there, but they're all going to be, if this does well, they're all going to be the series will continue as the next world from here on out, as long as readers want to read it.
Okay, so the two existing series have kind of met their conclusion, but similar stories will continue forward with the new series.
I don't want to spoil anything, but the Dead Years and the Last Outbreak both come to a conclusion that if you've read all 14 books, you'll see similarities at the end of both of them, and then you can see where this whole world can go forward. They're both 18 months into the outbreak, so you can see where both series could continue from there.
Right.
But this family, they're the Mercers. They want their story to be told. So my readers, I haven't even told my readers yet. I just actually finalized what I was going to do like yesterday. So I haven't even told my beta readers yet. But yeah, that they're going to get a brand new story.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
super exciting. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So do you have clearly you're very invested and you've got a lot of characters existing in the worlds that happen between the three series you're talking about. Do you have inclinations or desires to like jump in a totally different direction, like different genre, or maybe those kinds of things in the future?
You know, I did. I wrote a sci-fi standalone that's called Wrath. I liked it, but I didn't find an audience for it. And there's other things I would like to write. I like short stories. I wrote a short story. I think it was 2015 as well. I was going through at the time. I was going through Blake Crouch, a bunch of his short stories, and Hugh Howey's their short stories. And there was one in particular that really got my attention that Blake Crouch wrote. I think it was called 911. And actually there was another one too, and I don't remember the name of it, but these short stories, I thought, man, he really packed a lot into this short story, to the point where, I mean, there was twists and the twist ending really got me. And I thought, I want to see if I can do that. So I wrote a short story called Intent. And that one did well. Those that read it really liked it. But they just never found any legs. So as far as your question, yeah, I would like to at some point, but to be honest, I like writing these stories because for me, and I'm sure a lot of people that write, zombie fiction and post-apocalyptic, the zombies are there just as more of like a prop.
Right.
And they're, I always tell people that ask me about it that, for me, it's the zombies are there to be like, okay, we've got these people here that they need to go over there, but they can't because they're zombies, but they got to go this other way. But that other way is going to get them in trouble for another reason.
Right.
So yeah, I do have some other stories that I'd like to tell. But I'd like to see where, this other series that I'm going to write in later this year, I want to see where that one, what I can do with that, making it as real as possible. There's some sciencey stuff that I need to figure out first for that next series.
Yeah, it sounds super cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of wonderful looking covers, I think it was Intent that I saw on Facebook you had gotten a new cover for. Is that right?
Yeah. The guy that he did the covers for this new series that I'm doing for the Next World, James I think he's at Go On Right is his website. I got an email last week, I think it was, where he had some new pre-mades done, and I was just digging through his pre-made covers, and I saw that, and I'm like, wait, that's the cover for Intent.
That's
so
cool.
I messaged him. He got it back to me like an hour later, and it was up. It just right when I saw it, I just knew it was the one I wanted.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. It draws you in, and it's like you're saying. I mean, even going back to the cover you made versus the professional versions,
right?
It's such a, and just coming from a reader's perspective, yourself, it's when you look at a cover, it either is going to suck you in, or maybe you just like your eyes just glaze over it and onto the next one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. And I think that was one of the things early on. The original cover for the Dead Years, for volume 1, it was not great, but it was, I think it caught people's eye, even, and I don't know, maybe because it wasn't very good. I don't know, but it seemed to catch people's eye.
That's interesting. Yeah. And there is, like, in this day and age of YouTube and kind of the non-produced version of reality that draws people in, there is also, that's, interesting you say that aspect to it as well. I mean, I look at someone like Dirk Patton's covers, and hey, Dirk, if you hear this, your covers are fine because clearly you're doing well as an author. But
right.
If, objectively speaking, they're pretty simple. They're not all that fancy.
Sure.
But it totally works for him. He's created a brand, and people recognize it as kind of like this is his thing, and it works. Right.
And I think once you get your readers expecting something, I think they're going to look forward to that same thing.
Right. Well, I wanted to ask, you've been writing for a while now. Has becoming an author ruined your experience as a reader?
I think in some regards, yeah. But the funny thing, I don't read much in our genre. I read, I still read horror, but I like I said, I'm really, I went through Blake Crouch's entire catalog. I've read, I think, every single thing he's written, and now I'm on a Marcus Saki binge. I'm reading his. I think it was Afterlife. I read Afterlife a couple months ago, and I'm drawing a lot of inspiration from things that have nothing to do with zombie fiction at all, and it's kind of been good. I think one of the other things, I don't want any of the stories that I read, if I was to read zombie fiction, to drift into my books, whether I know it or not. There's been times when the day after I've watched, The Walking Dead, that I feel like some of the vibe is seeping into my books, and I don't know that I want that to happen. But like I said, I've been drawing a lot of inspiration from those two guys recently. Yeah,
right on. I've also totally love both of those authors, and just finished reading Afterlife a few days ago, and really enjoyed it. It's a crazy, very imaginative too. Also, ride about kind of how the nature of reality and what happens after you die. Right. And then most recently, I think, or not most recently, I think over the summer I read a book by John Rector. I don't even remember the name of it, but probably one of the best books I read in a while. It was just not what I expected at all. Oh, it was called The Ridge by John Rector. Cool. Okay, I'll check that out. Unbelievable. Yeah, it was really good. Right on. Well, I saw on maybe it was your Amazon profile where it sounds like, in just what you've described as well, when you're outside of writing and doing that kind of work, it seems like you like to stay fit, you like to exercise. Yeah. That goes way back. I've enjoyed that for a long time. And most recently, even before writing, I worked when I was in real estate. The company I was working for, they were based in Colorado, and I'm out here in Southern California, and they let me work from home. I worked for them for, I think, 3 years from home. So getting out during the middle of the day and going to the gym, it's almost like I have to do it. I got to be around other human beings, or I'm gonna go crazy. So I think it's helped me be consistent. Exercising by actually working at home, because I got to get out of here at some point. So are you saying you think it would not be a healthy development if you were to be like Thoreau and go sit in a pond with your eyes at surface level and think about frogs for a few days? I don't know. I doubt it though. Yeah, I one of the reasons I started this show actually is, and there was a number of reasons, but it was, as authors, like you're saying, the nature of the beast is that you spend a whole lot of time by yourself in your head,
Right.
which is cool in a lot of ways. But we are also human social creatures, and we need those connections and reaching out beyond just our own little brains.
Right. I completely agree. You do need some interaction. There's been times when, it being in your own head for that many hours a week it starts to lead to things, places you don't want to be. And so then, I know at those times I got to get up and go be around some people, call one of my buddies, meet up somewhere or something. But yeah, I think that's great that you have that outlet as well.
Right on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you, touching on the exercise bit, I saw that you said in the Amazon bio that a protein chocolate shake is a necessary part of every day. Is that right?
Yeah, at least one a day. The way I make it, I think I've perfected it over the last, 10, 15 years. It's chocolate protein powder. They actually make a powdered peanut butter now that I didn't know was a thing until maybe last year. So, and then I throw a frozen banana in there and some other stuff, and it just tastes like a big Reese's peanut butter cup.
Are you talking about the peanut butter, the PB2? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now, if you wouldn't mind, maybe afterwards, maybe along with that first cover version, if
Sure.
we could post that, if you could send over your recipe with the brand
sure.
name. Because I can tell people right now, I've tried a lot of protein shakes over the years, and so far I haven't really liked any of them.
Right.
And also, and here's maybe the worst part, is it my personal digestion? I don't know. But man, they produce the worst. Let's say, digestive elements.
Right.
And I'm talking about like burn your eyes, like very bad news.
Yeah. The one that I do, it seems to be okay. I've taken, I don't know how many different protein powders over the years, and this one seems to be okay.
All right. So I would definitely love to get the skinny on what works.
Right. Definitely.
All right. Well, Jeff, we're getting near the end of the show.
Sure.
So that can mean only one thing, which is the Rorschach Round. Welcome to the Rorschach Round, where we use ambiguously odd questions to delve deeper into the minds of these amazing authors. Let's get started. All right, and it's all in the attempt of building a psychological profile, which I don't know why we would do, but just because it's fun.
Right.
All right, here we go. So, question one. All right, let me make sure. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. So, question one. Has anyone ever made you mad in real life that you subsequently killed, maimed, or tortured in a book?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely. Yes.
Wait.
Yes.
So there was a firm positive there. More than one?
I want to say 2 or 3, but it wasn't like I named a character after them, or I thought about in my book. Actually, the last one that I wrote, or not the last one. The last one in the Dead Years. I had gotten a review that I was like, oh man, and I thought he reminds me of this character. And the next day, I went and gave him a brutal just lash. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that happened definitely.
Oh wait, I thought you were about to say it was so satisfying.
It really was. It really was. And maybe that's what got me over it.
Yeah, I've done it one time, and right, it was just a random person that happened to roll through my life.
Right.
But then treating that random person to a gory and unusual death in the story was just, it's probably sad, but I had the biggest smile on my face when it was over.
You're just working through some things.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right, you understand. All right, question 2. If you could know the day and time that you're going to die, would you want to?
I don't think so. I think like we were talking before about being in your own head so much. The last couple years, I've been had a little bit more anxiety and a little bit more depression than normal. And I think if I knew, I would probably just shut down until that time came. So I think for me, not knowing would probably be better. But then if I knew that I could find out, this is a tough one.
Maybe that's the next question. If you knew you could find out, would you choose to? Yeah, that's a good follow-up. I
would hope. Here. I guess we can go maybe one layer below that, like Marcus Saki did in Afterlife with all the layers. I don't think that I would want to know that I could know. I think I would want to be completely oblivious to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because I think if I found out, you could find out, there's this website you can go to and you just put in your social security number and your credit card information and you can find out. I don't think I'd want to know about that.
Even know about the website, you mean?
Right. I don't want to know about that website.
Right on. I agree. I think I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Question 3. What's the number one thing, if you can narrow it down like that you haven't done yet that you'd still love to do?
You know what I'd like to do? I wish I could make this logistically happen, but I'd love to meet with my readers. And I'm sure I can make it happen at some point. They've given me a life that before 4 years ago I didn't know existed. And I would like to meet up with them and just hang out like for an entire day and just talk to these people, because they're the people that I meet on Facebook and the readers that reach out to me are just like some of the coolest people ever. And as well as some of these authors and some of the people that I've met over the years, now you included. I mean, this is just a really cool thing.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I agree with that. And so you're saying you wouldn't be concerned about running into a Kathy Bates style #1 fan?
I have one of those.
Oh no.
Maybe not at that level, but
I hope not at that level. Wow, I'd be concerned for you.
I would, but I'll be honest. If I did run across them, I would be maybe a little fearful that it would turn that direction.
Okay.
But luckily that person, I guess they kind of seem harmless though. So
okay, that's good. So they're extremely dedicated.
Right. But for the most part, I think that the people that would show up, hopefully wouldn't strap my ankles to a 4x4 and come walking out with a sledgehammer. I would hope. Yeah.
I know. I prefer, and I'm going to put this out there, and you can add to it if you like. I prefer like a cold beer to that scenario you're describing. That would
be wonderful. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So here's, we're going to do just 3 quick questions here at the end. And these are just like whatever pops in your head first.
Sure.
All right. Look or leap first?
Look.
Love or respect?
Respect.
Thinking or feeling?
Feeling.
All right. You survived the Rorschach round.
Woo. That's perfect.
All right. Well, before we go, Jeff, it's been a pleasure. But before we go, I wanted to ask you, we kind of covered it earlier in the interview, but the upcoming projects that you may have, can you let us know about those?
Sure. The series I'm working on now, it's slated for 3 books. It's The Next World. Book 1 is Existence. And that's going to follow a family of 4 through the world of the dead years and the Last Outbreak. And then later this year, I have another project that's unnamed, although it's also going to be in the zombie genre. That I'm going to go as realistic as possible with the way everything happens. But that should be later this year. And it's just, I always tell my readers, just whatever you guys want, that's what I'm going to try and give you. And, I'm hoping this new series is going to blow them away. I'm going to do some things in this new series that I haven't done before. And hopefully they're going to really, really enjoy it.
That sounds super cool. We'll make sure and get the word out on that.
Yeah, and I do have to say, if any of my readers are listening, that Mason and Ethan and the rest of the favorites, they'll be back at some point. It may be a little bit later this year, but they're going to be back at some point.
And so when you say that, can you, or maybe, I don't know if you can say, are you talking about in this new series you're talking about?
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is once this family gets caught up and with the rest of them, they might somehow find their way to Harbor Crest, and that's all I'll say, because the people that have been through the series, they'll know what Harbor Crest is, and I think they may find their way there.
Right on. See. Yeah. No spoilers. Come on.
Right.
Right on. So where can people go to find out more about you and what you do?
They can either find, obviously find my author page on Amazon, or they can just go to my website. It's jeffolah.com.
Right on. We'll make sure all of that is included in the show notes.
Yeah, and if they want to hit me up on Facebook too, I'm always happy to talk to readers there as well.
Very good. Very good. Well, Jeff, I just wanted to say again, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, this has been an absolute blast. I really appreciate you taking your time as well to chat with me. This being my first podcast, this has been really, really great.
Hey, don't expect them all to be this fun. I mean, the next one might be terrible. I don't know.
That's cool.
All right. Well, we'll talk another time.
Thanks, buddy. Take care.
So I hope you enjoyed the show today with Jeff. I had a wonderful time. Special thank you to Jeff for taking the time to come on the show. That was a lot of fun. And for all of the things mentioned previously, we've got the latest book in the Last Outbreak series, the cover, and the link to his Next World series, Emergence. That's the first book that will be in that series, and also the cover of his first book, the one that has him that was put through the zombification app. We've got that also in the show notes. And last but not least, I think I had mentioned at the top of the show, he has been kind enough to share with us his top shelf chocolate protein recipe, which I am certainly happy to give a try because I've never found one that worked for me. And maybe, hopefully, this will be the one. So those are in the show notes in the usual place at www.williamoday.com/ the number of the episode. In this case, that is 1616. So go there to check those out. That's it for today. If you would like to be sure to never miss a show and always have them immediately available on your device of choice, you can subscribe by going to www.williamoday.com/iTunes. And if you enjoyed the show, I would so appreciate a rating and review on iTunes. They both help with store visibility, and they also let other listeners know if this show is something that they might be interested in checking out. And I've made it easy to access both of those by going to the same link on my website, www.williamoday.com/iTunes. That will have a link there that you can jump over to either subscribe and or maybe all three, rate and review the show. So I would so appreciate that. Thank you so much. That's it for now. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the OMG Book Show. You can find out more at www.williamoday.com.